All right, hey VC, I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We're back with another video and back with more vinyl that I picked up through March and just haven't had a chance to show it yet. So this video will run as long as we get through these albums. But we are now in another, this is our third shutdown, lockdown, whatever you want to call it, for the province of Ontario. The good news is that retail stores, like record stores, can still stay open. They just have to reduce their capacity of people that can enter the store, that sort of thing. But yeah, third lockdown, shutdown for the whole province. So it's like, oh. Just feels like it's never going to end. So let's get to it. Let's show some fun vinyl. Something unusual off the top. I have featured this on my Instagram page. This is the band Omega Red Star. They were also known simply as Omega. I won't try to pronounce the title, but this band from Budapest, Hungary. And I thought with the cover and the general look of it that it would be kind of a psych endeavor, and sure enough, it's got that really kind of a psych rock thing going on. Now they don't sing in English, but I really enjoyed the record, and yeah, worth checking out for sure. I think there are some clips available on YouTube. Not a lot of information available about the band for sure, but yeah, Omega Red Star, or Omega. Canadian artist Ian Matthews. This is not to be confused with Ian Matthews, formerly of Fairport Convention. Kind of just pop stuff from the late 70s, and this was on Mushroom Records. And the big hit from this was the track Shake It. So Ian Matthews, as I mentioned on the Mushroom label, this did come with the original sleeve. Very nice. Just kind of radio-friendly pop, that sort of thing. And on the Mushroom Records label, which was a record label for some of the early Heart records. Okay, I picked this up. Also featured this on my Instagram channel or page. This is the Brothers Four saying Lennon and McCartney. I picked this up at a local thrift store. So it's a nice song selection. So the Brothers Four, that really sort of nice, very pleasant folk-sounding group, nice harmonies. And with this kind of song selection, it does surprisingly work. Now it's very mellow, very, as I said, very nice. But I thought it was an enjoyable listen, and just kind of a novelty to a degree of the Brothers Four doing all Beatles or Lennon and McCartney stuff. Now the quality of this album jacket is absolutely horrible, but surprisingly the vinyl is in pretty good condition. And this is on the Columbia label, and I thought that was just an enjoyable listen to. Talk about an enjoyable listen. Big Joe Turner and Rhythm and Blues Years, and this is on the Atlantic label, and this came out in like 1986. This was also available on CD, and this is when Atlantic were releasing stuff like this. Now this was released about a year or two after Big Joe Turner had died. Of course, Big Joe Turner had the hit Shake, Rattle and Roll. And this is a double album, sort of a retrospect. Now, Shake, Rattle, and Roll is not featured on here, but it's got some great tracks, including TV Mama. Big Joe Turner, just love his sound. But as I was mentioning, for Atlantic Records, they were releasing a number of great sort of double album blues compilations and things like this. And then when they would put these on CD, because these were double albums, they released them as single CDs and often cut a number of the tracks to make it fit on a single CD. So it's nice, like for this, for an example, for this, it is available, but just as a single CD, and they cut a number of songs, which I thought was really... that was one of the downsides big time in the early days of CDs, when they would have double albums and cut songs. Why they did that, like just release it as a double CD. But really great sound on that one, Big Joe Turner. Okay, always seem to be picking up some Dave Mason, or coming across Dave Mason. This is Mariposa de Oro. Another nice Dave Mason album. He does a nice cover of Will You Love Me Tomorrow. He calls it Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow on this one. But just another, pleasant Dave Mason album. And this one does include the sleeve. Like that. And on Columbia. Now, this was a obscure Canadian find. I'll shout this one out to Daryl at Off the Beaten Tracks. This is Humphrey and the Dump Trucks and 6 Days of Paper Ladies. And this is on Boot Records, which was Stompin' Tom Connor's label. So this came out, I'm not sure exactly the year, but I want to say early 70s for sure. They were a band from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and pretty much what you're thinking, it's country, but it's a lot of sort of bluegrass, country leanings, maybe a little bit of folk. Very pleasant to listen to. If you like Perth County Conspiracy, a band that I've talked about, you would enjoy this. They only released a couple of albums, and the one fella is named Humphrey Dump Truck, but that's not actually his real name. I believe his name was, I want to say Gary Walsh or something like that. But again, really very pleasant to listen to. And this was still in the shrink and just in terrific condition. So I was really happy to come across this one because you don't often see this one than on Boot Records. Happy to come across this one. This is a copy of the Beach Boys' Party. And Party was the sort of Beach Boys stopgap when Brian was working on Pet Sounds. Capitol needed an album, so they thought they'd quickly throw this together. This is kind of like the original Unplugged, if you will, the Beach Boys and Party. Now, if you're seeing the, again, this is still in the shrink, and you're seeing the Towers price tag, that is not to be confused with Tower Records, the great Tower Records in the States. This is the Towers department store in Canada. But yeah, this is still in the shrink. And this is a later pressing. This is not an original, but it's not a current reissue, obviously. But this was a mono reissue, a Capitol reissue monophonic, which I was quite pleasantly surprised. And just fun. They do a lot of Beatles covers on this one. You've got To Hide Your Love Away. They also copy Tell Me Why and do Bob Dylan's Times They Are Changing. And sometimes they don't even do the whole song. They also do I Should Have Known Better from the Beatles. Sometimes they don't do the whole song. And Barbara Ann was the big hit from that one. And this on the Capitol Green label. But really happy to come across that one. Okay, Tom Robinson, the Tom Robinson Band. This is TRB2. Again, kind of punk or post-punk, if you will. This came out in 1979. And I hadn't realized how many albums Tom Robinson, between solo stuff and the Tom Robertson Band, that they released. But this has just got just a terrific sound. And this came out, what year was this? This was on Harvest. On the Harvest label, 1979. But yeah, I was able to pick up a couple of Tom Robinson albums, so I'm going to have to get into those. But I really have enjoyed Tom Robinson too. I remember when this came out in the late 70s, but it wasn't music that I was able to hear or anything like that. Okay, another Lighthouse. This is a Lighthouse compilation called One Fine Light, and this features their first of 3 albums. That's kind of just before the hits really started coming. This is an odd compilation because basically record 1 is their first album with the songs in a slightly different order, and then side 3 and 4 are songs from the second and third album. So they feature the complete first album and then songs. Now, I don't know what this was, if this is clearly liquid paper on top of this, so nice nice cover. Unfortunately, that has that. I don't know if that was the person's name or something else. But this kind of just a sort of a compilation, because they had switched labels. They were on RCA and then went to GRT. So obviously RCA, capitalizing on Lighthouse's bigger hits, released this compilation, and quite simply on the on the RCA label. Okay, always enjoy coming across Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, and this is the album What's Next, and you're thinking, okay, what's this going to be like? Now, we know the general sounds of Mahogany Rush, but man, this is just killer from start to finish. This is a great rockin' album. Frank Marino's in fine form. And well worth picking up. But I wasn't familiar with this one. Usually it's the other Mahogany Rush albums that you see with the great artwork. This is a later album from the year 1980 on CBS. But it is killer from start to finish. Really great. Okay, Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, some great Canadian music there. A couple more Dave Edmunds albums. Enjoy picking up Dave Edmunds wherever I can. I did really enjoy this one. This one features a lot of covers, and unfortunately this is part of the Best Buy series, and Best Buy is not to be confused with the Best Buy department stores or anything like that. Best Buy was an RCA, I believe an RCA Canadian sort of a budget label in terms of reissues. But unfortunately, they would put this right on all of the albums, so it wasn't a hype sticker or anything like that. But a number of covers on this one. Baby, I Love You, along with To Do Run Run, Shot of Rhythm and Blues. But a nice album. And on the great yellow RCA label. So there's that one. And then there is this Dave Edmunds album. And great tracks there. As I say, I just like Dave Edmunds' sound. I just like his kind of rockin', kind of rockabilly, rock and roll sound. And this Dave Edmunds 7th on the Columbia label. Okay, another Roger Taylor album. Roger Taylor, drummer from Queen. It's interesting, Roger Taylor, with such a amazing voice. I mean, obviously, Freddie Mercury and his incredible voice, but you forget how good Roger Taylor's voice is and how much it adds to the whole Queen sound. This is the album Stranger Frontier. Again, there's nothing that really jumps out at you in terms of like a hit song, but it's got a nice sound overall. It's a shame that Roger Taylor just didn't find better success. That is quite the, I don't know what's going on there. This one came out, I want to say, the 80s, 1984 on this one. And on the Capitol Rainbow label, Roger Taylor. Okay, this is a thrift store find. I'm so glad I picked this up. I wasn't sure if I was going to. This is A&M Records $1 Million Sound Sampler, and this features the typical A&M label stars like Herb Alpert, also Chris Montez, Sandpipers. A couple of Canadians on this one. We have Lucille Starr that's featured, and then Lucille Starr is also part of Canadian Sunsets. Sergio Mendes is also on here, the Sandpipers. But it's just got that nice, middle of the road A&M record sound. I really enjoyed that one. The $1 Million Sampler. And speaking of which, also picked this up at a thrift store. This is Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66 and Fool on the Hill. Of course, the Beatles classic. And, it's that smooth as silk Sergio Mendes sound. And they're having lots of fun on the beach there. And this was like their, I want to say, second or third album for Sergio Mendes. There we go. Now here is a nice compilation that I was able to pick up. This is the greatest of the groups on Scepter Records. So you've got the Shirelles also featured on here, the Bluebells, the Kingsmen, Isley Brothers, and a band called the Rocky Fellers, which I was not familiar with. And this is a stereo album, I believe. Yes, a stereo album. But there you have that. Just that wonderful early 60s sound. Okay, and I do love the label. Okay. Saw this. This was a reissue, and I had to pick it up. Fleetwood Mac and the Pious Bird of Good Omen. I do have a CD copy of it, but this is a really nice early Fleetwood Mac compilation. You've got Need Your Love So Bad on here. Also Albatross, Black Magic Woman, Stop Messing Around, Sun is Shining. This is just a nice early Fleetwood Mac compilation, and it's part of some of the, I think, fairly recent reissues for Blue Horizon, which has been nice to see. And as I said, it was reasonably priced, so I picked it up. And I don't know if it's 180 gram, but it does feel pretty good. Like it maybe not quite 180. Okay, some Steve Hackett, some Steve Howe, and GTR. And this is not a bad album. The vocalist on here, Max Bacon's got a good sound. It's interesting. They did have the hit When the Heart Rules the Mind, and it does kind of have, this album has some of the 80s trappings. Now, this is almost kind of like a Steve Howe leaving Asia. It's kind of a post-Asia, at least a post-Asia early part of their career, with also Jeff Downes producing this. Jeff Downes, formerly of Asia at the time, but then, my gosh, when you got Steve Howe and Steve Hackett together, the instrumental pieces on here I think work better. It's a shame that they weren't able to make more albums, and GTR, you're thinking, does it stand for the initials or something? GTR is kind of like short for guitar, or if you were writing the short form for guitar on the mixing board is like GTR, that sort of thing. Very cool cover. And usually you can find this one pretty cheaply. But if you come across it, it's worth picking up. And this on the Arista label. Okay, now this was a nice find. This is one of those albums I didn't think I'd ever come across. But I was able to come across the Beatles and the classic love songs. Remember when this compilation came out, and again in like 1977, when there were a lot of Beatles compilations hitting the market, like Beatles Rock and Roll Music and some of the movie compilations. So this is the double album. The cover is not in the best of shape, but it does have the nice kind of, I don't know, fake leather sort of feel to it, and it's got the nice glossy thing going on. And I do love this this photo of the Beatles. I think this is one of, I mean, there's so many great ones, but I really love this photo of the Beatles. And the fact that John, for whatever reason, isn't wearing his glasses in this, I just think it's interesting. Just think it's a well done photo. And this does include, let me see here, this includes the original sleeves. So we have that, and this is yellow vinyl. So this is not a current reissue or anything like that. And it does also include the lyric booklet, which is absolutely beautiful. And of course we know all the Beatles songs, but that's just a quick look at the booklet. So I was really happy to pick that up, and the vinyl is in great shape. The cover is okay in terms of the condition, but the vinyl is in great shape. An album, for some reason, I never had until now, Steppenwolf II, another fantastic Steppenwolf album, because this features Magic Carpet Ride. And man, when you talk about great psych rock or psych, heavy rock, gotta go with Steppenwolf. Again, the album's not in bad, or in terms of the cover, is not in bad shape, but the album itself seems to be in pretty decent shape. And this on ABC Dunhill. Okay, the band Babe Ruth, ironically from the UK, and this is Babe Ruth's greatest hits. As you can see, all the baseball, and of course baseball started again. And yeah, not a bad album, not a bad album overall in terms of Babe Ruth. They had a pretty good sound. This on the Capital Green label. Now here's a band I've always seen, but was not that familiar with it, the band Sparks. For some reason, I thought Sparks was a UK outfit, but they are an American outfit. Very interesting vocals, and I don't know, and this has almost a look of a Hypnosis cover, but this was produced by Tony Visconti of course, David Bowie fame. But this is a band I'm going to have to check out more of, because they do have a number of albums available, but Sparks, and this is on the and they have quite a totally unique sound, almost sort of like a theatrical sound. It's very different music. Sparks, and the album Indiscreet. I was able to pick this up, a band I did not know very much about, the band Detective, and It Takes One to Know One. Featured in this band is Michael DeBars, who is probably noted as more of an actor than his musical output, but lead vocals on this, and Tony Kaye, formerly of Yes, is on keyboards. And they only did a couple of albums, and they are on the Swan Song label. And I read something that Jimi Hendrix was a fan of this band. He thought that they were a good band and probably should have gone on to much more success. But yeah, they had a pretty decent sound overall. It would have been nice to have seen more albums. Okay, in terms of very creative packaging, I got to go with this one in terms of Rod Stewart and Sing It Again. And I forgot what a good compilation this was for Rod Stewart, but just fun packaging. I just love the strength, the size of this thing, the clarity in the ice cubes, and then on the back like that, and the way that it cleverly pops out like this. And then you have, of course, the empty glass inside. And then we've got these photos here, but then this opens up to reveal, I don't know, oops, you can see that the song listings there. Now I did put, this is quite heavy cardboard, so I did put a lined inner sleeve here. But this compilation, I think, is almost about 50 minutes in length, so it's a single album. But this is just on the Mercury label. This is really a great Rod Stewart compilation. I don't know if I can show you some of it. Again, when you're talking about Rod Stewart from the Mercury days, you're talking some great songs here. But talk about fun and creative packaging for a greatest hits. I absolutely love that. Okay, I always enjoy picking up any Tangerine Dream I can find. Phaedra by Tangerine Dream. I don't know what more I can say about this one on the Virgin Records label. Especially the early Tangerine Dream. Absolutely love it. Absolutely wonderful. And great label there. Okay, I've been getting into, here's a band, I enjoyed, but didn't really give them enough credit for, and I've been picking up, trying to find more Mamas and Papas albums, just because they're generally quite reasonably priced, and we'll talk about this one in terms of more creative, fun packaging. But this is Mamas and Papas at Cash, John, Michelle, and Denny, and just another wonderful album with featuring I Saw Her Again on this one, and this on RCA Victor. But just their great harmonies, the nice California sound, and this one had the original inner sleeve, which is fun, on RCA Victor. But yeah, a band that I never often would seek out, but certainly after watching that Echo in the Canyon show, that sort of documentary, really getting into Mamas and Papas more, showing more appreciation for this band. Now here's another example of some fun packaging on this one. This has Dream a Little Dream of Me, produced by Lou Adler. But when you have, oops, and unfortunately it does have the original owner's autograph there, but you have that, and then you got that, and then we'll open up the bottom, and you have that, or of course you can do that, whoops, like that, so you got either or, just kind of fun. And this one, of course, called the Papas and Mamas. And again on RCA Victor. And featuring that classic RCA Victor label. Okay, I, for some reason, have been able to come across, and you don't see them often in this area, the Warner Brothers compilations, the Lost Leader ones. This is a dynamite one. This is the 1969 Warner Reprise Songbook. Amazing, delightful, 23 different acts, 40 selections, old and new. And this features the gal from the band, the GTOs, and she's featured on the Hot Rats Frank Zappa album on the cover. But this is just a terrific compilation. Again, the jacket's not in great shape, but that's okay in terms of the contents. And this features this sort of booklet that's attached to it. But just absolutely amazing selection of artists. And this is a double album. And this features the original sleeves, which is so cool. The Lost Leaders were these mail order compilations from Warner Brothers that were often very reasonably priced. And this on the, of course, the great green label. But like you got Jethro Tull, the Pentangle, Van Morrison, Neil Young, Tom Northcott's featured on this. Also, you got Sweetwater, Joni Mitchell, the Electric Prunes, the Kinks, Jimi Hendrix. And then on the other record, You have, again, the same inner sleeve, but then you've got also featured on here, if I can read this, you've got Frank Zappa, the Fugs, Mothers of Invention, Tiny Tim, Arlo Guthrie, and Everly Brothers from their Warner years, Van Dyke Parks, the Bill Brummels, Randy Newman, like just outstanding early compilations, and always very kind of fun, creative covers, sometimes some very unusual covers, if you will. And here is another one. Again, if you were looking at this, you'd think maybe this is for kids, but because Warner Brothers with Warner Brothers Cartoons, for these kind of compilations, they would just have some fun, with some of the packaging, if you will. So this is another great one. What was the year for this one, though? I don't know offhand. 1973 for this one. Again, with some of the early ones, they would often have like these pages attached that gives you a write-up on all of the artists featured here. And again, this one did also feature the original sleeves that gives you the information on all the other lost leaders. This one, though, on the classic palm tree label. For this one, you've got, again, like Jethro Tull, the Mothers, Three-Man Army. Also, Robin Trowers featured on this, Up with Camel, Kathy Dalton. Just amazing. And this, I think this one has got some snippets of various old Warner Brothers movies, which is, at least the snippets are pretty quick. It doesn't quite work when you're listening to it. It's a little, it doesn't really make sense in terms of the whole presentation. But this compilation is called All Singing, All Talking, All Rocking. Also, the Doobie Brothers are featured on this. Jesse Colin Young, Peter Yarrow. But these compilations are always so interesting. But then you've got a clip from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and you're like listening to that, and then it'll go into a song. So it's a little bizarre that way. Now, not all their compilations were like that, but that particular one featuring all these very strange movie clips. Okay, another thrift store buy. We've got to Sergio Mendes and Brazil 66 with a very psychedelic looking cover, and the album Equinox. This is not psychedelic, it is Sergio Mendes, so it's smooth vocals, smooth sound. And the cover, not in the best of shape, but again, the album in great shape. Okay, a couple of Chicago albums. Let's see what we got here. So we've got to Chicago. And I'll look on the side here. This is Chicago 6. And I got to hand it to Chicago in terms of their album designs and packaging. Always entertaining. Like that. And Just You and Me is featured on this one. Also, what else is on here? Just You and Me is certainly one of the big songs on here. Feeling Stronger Every Day, of course, also featured on here. It was a huge hit as well. And I do love their sort of old style packaging on some of this. And very nice label, kind of cool. And then we've got to Chicago, and this is, I think, Chicago, I want to say Chicago 11. That is pretty cool. Yeah, they always had kind of a, not always, but especially for a lot of their early albums, they had kind of a nice retro or nostalgic look to them. And what's the big one that featured on here? Yeah, no super big hits from this one that Baby, What a Big Surprise. Yeah, featured on here. Oh, there we go. And there we go. Okay, this was a thrift store find. The FIREBIRD-SUITE. I love the FIREBIRD-SUITE. This is not a bad album. It wasn't in the best of shape, but I thought bizarre cover for sure for the FIREBIRD-SUITE. But I thought, and this was on the London label, so I thought I'd pick it up. And the album's in okay shape. Not the best of shape, but did enjoy listening to it for sure. Okay, some early 80s Canadian. You don't often see this band. This is the Pucka Orchestra, and the big hit off this one was Listen to the Radio. And yeah, this came out in 1983. on Solid Gold Records. They had like a few radio hits, didn't stay around for too long. But well worth checking out. And was really happy to come across this one, because you don't often see too many of these albums out there anymore. Seem to be kind of disappearing. On the Solid Gold label. Again, kind of radio friendly, but sort of early 80s. I don't want to say like not terribly avant-garde or anything like that, but you know, not the typical, you know, radio friendly stuff. They had a nice, interesting sound going on. Okay, always enjoy picking up any Leon Russell that I can find, and I've got a few of albums from Leon and Mary Russell, and this is Make Love to the Music, and this was still in the shrink. So happy to come across this, and yeah, another wonderful Leon Russell album, and this on the Paradise Records label. Okay, Richie Havens. I've been able to come across a few Richie Havens albums lately, and this is Richie P. Havens 1983, and this is a double album from Richie Havens, featuring both studio and live. There you go. Just Richie Havens. Absolutely love his voice. And unfortunately, this did not include any of the original inserts or anything like that. But on the MGM label, you know, Richie Havens. Gotta love Richie Havens for sure. Okay. Now, this was a blind buy at a area thrift store. This just looked too interesting to pass up. The artist is Jay Littleton, and he is an American who went to France and enjoyed it there, decided to stay there, and sings in French. So there's no English featured on this one. It has kind of that, you know, the gospel, spiritual tinge to it, but some of the background vocals, though, I thought was a bit much. The first track, I thought, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into? It just seemed to have that overly syrupy background vocals, but the rest of the album is not too bad. He has a number of albums out, and this on the Select label, but absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this. Okay. Always happy to come across any Renaissance, and unfortunately the previous owner's signature is all over this one, but this is a Hypnosis album cover, and it's interesting. This is from 1978, but for some reason this cover really makes me think of the 80s. It really has that kind of 80s look to it, even though it's like 1978, but of course a Hypnosis designed album cover, and this features an absolutely wonderful song on here that you can see on YouTube, the song Northern Lights, and they performed this song a couple of times on Top of the Pops, and that song has kind of an ABBA sound to it, but really enjoyed it on Sire Records. And this also, if I'm not mistaken, also included the original poster. Now, the poster's not in the best of shape. It's got a big rip in it, but it's still technically all there. I don't know if you can see that there. Unfortunately, it's got a nice little rip in it, but that was nice to have that as well. Oh dear. Okay, Renaissance. Okay, let's see what else we got here. B.W. Stevenson. I've talked about this artist before. Really enjoying his wonderfully country sound. My Maria was really the big hit from B.W. Stevenson. This is the album Lifeline, that has kind of a Christian theme to it, and this does include the original sleeve, and of course nothing on that side. Again, just like B.W.'s Stevenson's sound overall, and that's on Songbird. And what year did this come out? I think this was one of his last albums from 1980, before his passing. Okay, Dwayne Ford, Needless Freaking. A lot going on in that cover. This is a Canadian artist, I believe, and David Foster co-produced this and also plays on it as well. Not a bad album. You know, nothing too spectacular, but generally a nice sound overall. And this on the Epic label, and this came out in 1981 on CBS. And of course, at that time where David Foster was then going to be very busy with producing Chicago. Okay, Maria Muldaur and Sweet Harmony. I never feel like I'm pronouncing her name properly, her last name, but she has just a wonderful sound. Midnight at the Oasis was one of her big songs. That's not featured on this one, but she does a couple of covers on this one, as I recall. She does a Smokey Robinson song, Sweet Harmony. But yeah, nice album overall. And it's on the Reprise record label. And yeah, this one came out in 1976. Okay, we've got a Canadian band, the Diodes. Talk about some great punk or post-punk. This one came out in 1980. And another terrific album. It's really hard to find Diodes records, but if you like nice kind of punk sound that's going on with this, well worth checking out for sure. Okay, the Flock, a Dinosaur Swamp. You want to talk about some great rockin' stuff. So happy to finally come across this. I've had this on CD, band that I wasn't initially aware of, but man, check this out. There's that. Man, nice gatefold here, but great blues rock going on with this band for sure. Then on the Columbia label. Okay, how about some Niles Lofgren? And this is I Came to Dance. Another great Niles Lofgren album. And I was wondering, when did this one come out? No, I don't know offhand. Niles Lofgren. And this one includes the original inner sleeve. And from 1977. Here we go. Okay, how about some Oscar Peterson? This is Oscar Peterson, and this is part of the Golden Archive series, sort of a budget label. In fact, this is a DJ copy. So Oscar Peterson, and you know, what can you say? Love Oscar, sounds great. And this was found on this sleeve, which I don't know if this is an original. I have my doubts. Looks like this sleeve should belong to some other sort of a record label or record design, and then on the MGM label. Okay, we got Bruce Cockburn album. This is Bruce Cockburn, Joy Will Find a Way. And this is indicative of the early Bruce Cockburn sound, so it's very acoustic bass. It features the title track, which is a lovely song. Also Burns, Star Wheels on this one. Nice gatefold on this album. So very acoustic, singer-songwriter, introspective stuff. This did include the original insert. And I find a lot of times these Bruce Cockburns, for some reason, the insert's always missing. And it's always interesting for Bruce Cockburn that he's always had, even though he sings predominantly in English, the lyrics are always printed out in both English and in French. So yeah, that's just a nice lyric insert there. And on the True North label. Do like that label. Okay, another great Canadian artist is Ray MATERICK. I've shown a few Ray MATERICK albums, and this is Best Friend Overnight, and this one on the Warner label, WEA label, sort of you know, country rock sounds of Ray MATERICK. And thankfully, I've been coming across a few Ray MATERICK albums. This one included the original insert, which was quite nice. Like that. And then, as I mentioned, on the Warner, or actually on the Asylum label, in fact, on Asylum Records. Okay, The Babies, and this is the album Head First. Great album. I've really enjoyed these Babies albums that I've been picking up because it's just got a great sound. Great sound, especially John Waite on the lead vocals. And so this is another good one. A little bit of a speckled back here. Again, the cover not necessarily in the best of condition. And this on the Chrysalis label. And gosh, when did this come out? Let's say maybe like late 70s. Let's see if I can find inside. So the album Head First. in 1978. Okay, and for some reason, even though I already have a copy of this, I picked up this, so now I have two copies. This is Lionel Richie and Can't Slow Down. Of course, it features all the big hits from this album. This was picked up at a thrift store, but this is a not a UK, but a European copy, I believe, quite possibly a German copy, or a German, yeah, printed in West Germany. So a European copy of this, and this is the only album I've ever come across in a thrift store that has the full, like, it came in this jacket that's provided for a fold out, or it's not a double album, but I've never seen in a thrift store. So whoever owned this obviously kept this in very nice condition, and still, of course, with the inner sleeve. The wonderful Lionel Richie, and of course on the Motown label. Very nice. Okay, so that is going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you so much for dropping by, and do take care. We'll chat again. Bye-bye.